Imagine waking up in a frozen valley. Your fire's dead. Your stomach is empty. The hunters returned with nothing. Winter is closing in. Then you see it, a herd of massive animals. They carry food with them. Not meat, not yet. Milk. Would you risk everything to take it? Most people think milk begins in a supermarket, a white carton, a cold shelf, a familiar cow. But milk began as a survival gamble. It began when ancient humans stopped seeing animals as only prey. They started seeing them as living food stores. That changed everything. But here is the strange part. Cow milk was not the obvious winner. It was not the only choice. It was not always the safest choice. And it may not even be the best choice for your body. So why is cow milk in your fridge? Why not goat milk? Why not buffalo milk? Why not camel milk? Why not sheep milk? The easy answer is simple. Cows make lots of milk. That answer is true, but it hides the real story. The deeper answer is about hunger. It is about migration. It is about genes. It is about which ancient groups survived long enough to shape the modern world. And it begins with a biological rule. Milk is made for babies. Every mammal follows that rule. A wolf pup drinks from its mother. Then it grows teeth. Then the milk stops. A chimpanzee does the same. A whale calf does the same. A lion cub does the same. Nature gives milk an ending. Humans broke that ending. We did something no other species does at scale. We began drinking another animal's milk. Then we kept drinking it as adults. At first, this sounds unnatural. And in a way, it is. Adult humans were not originally built for it. Your body makes an enzyme called lactase. Lactase breaks down lactose. Lactose is milk sugar. Babies need it. Babies make lots of lactase. But after weaning, most mammals reduce it. Ancient humans likely did too. That was the original human setting. Drink milk as a child, stop when childhood ends. Then came the first reveal. The people who first kept animals could still use milk, but not always by drinking it fresh. They could turn it into cheese. They could make yogurt. They could ferment it. These methods reduced lactose. They made milk easier to tolerate. They also made milk last longer. That mattered in a world without refrigerators. A dead animal gave one meal. A living animal could give many meals. That was a prehistoric breakthrough. A herd was not just meat walking across grass. It was a moving pantry. It was fat during drought. It was protein during winter. It was food when hunting failed. But fresh milk carried a problem. Most adults got sick from it. Cramps came next. Gas came next. Diarrhea came next. For a starving group, that was dangerous. Losing water could kill you. Losing strength could kill you. And yet, some communities kept drinking milk. Why? Because evolution found a loophole. A genetic change appeared. It allowed some adults to keep making lactase. This trait is called lactase persistence. It was not designed, it was selected. In places where herding mattered, it could become a survival advantage. Imagine two ancient families. Both live near cattle. Both face a long, dry season. Both have little grain. Both have little game. One family can drink fresh milk. The other cannot. The first family gets calories. The first family gets fluid. The first family gets fat and protein. The second family must avoid it. Over many generations, that difference could matter. Not everywhere, not for everyone, but enough to reshape populations. This is the false answer. People say humans drink milk because milk is healthy. That is not the full answer. Humans drank milk because it could keep certain communities alive. Health came later. Habit came later. Industry came much later. Survival came first. Now comes the deeper reveal. Not all herders had cows. Some lived in steep mountains. Some lived on dry grasslands. Some lived in deserts. Some lived in cold northern plains. Their animals were different. Their milk was different. Their survival strategies were different. Goats were among the earliest useful dairy animals. They were small, they were tough. They could climb rocky terrain. They could survive where large cattle struggled. A goat herd could feed families in harsh hills. Goat milk also has a different structure from cow milk. Its fat droplets are often smaller. Many people find it easier to digest. But easier does not mean lactose-free. A person with lactose intolerance can still react to it. The difference is not magic. It is just different biology. For ancient mountain people, goats were not trendy. They were practical. A cow needs more land. A cow needs more water. A goat can live on less. That made goats powerful survival partners. Then there were sheep. Sheep milk is dense, very dense. It contains more fat and protein than ordinary cow milk. That makes it valuable for cheese. A smaller amount can create a richer food. For ancient people, cheese was more than a snack. It was preserved energy. It was portable nutrition. It was food for travel. It was food for winter. It was food that did not spoil in a day. Sheep turned grass into a compact survival ration. That is why sheep milk mattered. Not because it looked glamorous, because it stored well, because it fed people when fields went empty. Then came buffalo. Buffalo milk is thicker. It is richer. It contains more fat than typical cow milk. In parts of South Asia, buffalo became a major dairy animal. That makes perfect sense. Buffalo can thrive in environments suited to them. They provide milk with serious energy. For farming communities, energy mattered. A hard day in the fields burned calories. A growing child needed calories. A family facing scarcity needed calories. Buffalo milk delivered them. Today, People know buffalo milk through mozzarella, but long before fancy food, it was survival fuel. Now imagine the desert. No green pasture, no cool river valley, no easy water. A cow would struggle there. A camel would not. Camels became lifelines across North Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia. They carried people, they carried goods, they crossed brutal distances, and they gave milk. Camel milk became a daily food in places where other dairy animals could not easily survive. It has a different nutritional profile from cow milk. It is often lower in lactose. It can contain more vitamin C. That may matter in places with limited fresh produce. But camel milk's real ancient power was simpler. It came from an animal built for the desert. The animal was the technology. The milk was part of the system. Then there is the most surprising animal, the donkey. Donkey milk has long fascinated people. Its composition is closer to human milk in some ways than many other animal milks. It is lower in fat. It is relatively high in lactose. Historically, it was sometimes used when infants could not be breastfed. But it was never likely to conquer the world. Why not? Because donkeys make very little milk. That is the trap. The most human-like milk was not the most scalable milk. The most nutrient-dense milk was not always the easiest to produce. The easiest animal to keep was not always the biggest producer. Every milk came with a trade-off. And that brings us back to the cow. Cow milk did not dominate because ancient people held a global nutrition contest. There was no contest. There were only local problems. Who has enough grass? Who has enough water? Who can protect a herd? Who can move animals? Who can survive the winter? Cattle had huge advantages. They could provide meat. They could provide hides. They could pull ploughs. They could produce dung for fuel. And dairy cattle could produce large amounts of milk. That last part changed the equation. One cow could give far more milk than a goat or sheep. When societies grew larger, volume mattered more. Cities needed food. Armies needed food. Markets needed food. Factories needed food. Cow milk scaled. That is why it won. Not because everybody preferred it. Not because it defeated every other milk nutritionally. It won because the world built systems around it. Fields were shaped around cattle. Breeding was shaped around cattle. Transport was shaped around cattle. Processing plants were shaped around cattle. Advertising was shaped around cattle. Then, cow milk stopped being one option. It became the default. And defaults are powerful. People confuse common with natural. People confuse familiar with best. People confuse industrial success with biological perfection. Cow milk is a perfect example. Here is another false answer. You might think raw milk is closer to ancient life, therefore it must be better. It sounds convincing. Raw means untouched. Raw means ancestral. Raw means pure. But ancient does not automatically mean safe. Ancient humans also faced pathogens. They faced contaminated water. They faced infections. They faced no antibiotics. They faced no hospitals. Milk can carry dangerous microbes. Pasteurization was created to reduce that risk. It heats milk enough to kill many harmful organisms. Yes, heating can change some components. That is true. But safety is also a component of food. A food that sends you to a hospital is not automatically healthier because it is less processed. The ancient world was not a wellness retreat. It was dangerous. People did not survive because everything was pure. They survived by adapting. They survived by learning. They survived by reducing risk when they could. That is the real evolutionary lesson. Now the story takes one more turn. What about plant milk? Almond milk? Oat milk? Soy milk? Coconut milk? These are not mammal milk. They are plant-based drinks. They were created to copy milk's role. They can be creamy. They can go in coffee. They can go on cereal. They can replace dairy for many people. But they are not all the same. Soy milk usually provides more protein than most plant options. Oat milk is often higher in carbohydrates. Almond milk can be very low in protein. Coconut milk can be rich in saturated fat. Fortification also changes the picture. Some products add calcium. Some add vitamins. Some add sugar. The label matters. But the bigger point is this. Plant milk does not require lactase. That gives it an advantage for people who cannot digest lactose. And most adult humans worldwide do not digest lactose easily. That is not a flaw. That is the older human pattern. Lactase persistence is the unusual adaptation. Lactose intolerance is often the original condition. So what is the healthiest milk? There is no single answer. That is the final reveal. The best milk depends on the person. It depends on digestion. It depends on allergies. It depends on nutrient needs. It depends on culture. It depends on access. It depends on medical guidance. Sheep milk can offer dense nutrition. Buffalo milk can offer rich energy. Camel milk can fit desert traditions. Goat milk can suit people who prefer its structure. Soy milk can help replace protein for some dairy-free diets. Cow milk can be a useful, accessible option for people who tolerate it. But none of these are universal winners. Your ancestors did not drink one perfect milk. They drank what their land allowed. They drank what their animals could provide. They drank what their bodies could handle. They drank what helped them survive. That is why your fridge matters. It is a tiny museum of ancient decisions. That carton of cow milk is not just food. It is the end result of migration, domestication, mutation, farming, trade, industry, and habit. The cow did not become king because nature crowned it. The cow became king because humans built a kingdom around it. So the next time you pour milk, pause for a second. Think about the first herder. Think about the first hungry family. Think about the first adult who could drink fresh milk without getting sick. Think about the deserts that chose camels. Think about the mountains that chose goats. Think about the grasslands that chose sheep. Think about the wetlands that chose buffalo. Then remember this. What feels normal is often just history wearing a disguise.